My name is Clara. I'm 32 years old, and the words just tumbled out of my mouth before I could stop them, cold and sharp. You're too old for this job, I told the janitor, pointing at the overflowing trash can he was struggling with. He froze, his wrinkled hand still gripping the plastic. A deep shame washed over me, but I buried it under a wave of executive impatience. He then showed me my father's will, and my entire world tilted on its axis. I inherited my father's company, Thompson Innovations, a year ago. My father, Richard, who was 65 when he passed from a heart attack, built it from nothing. He was a man of handshakes and integrity. I, on the other hand, am a woman of spreadsheets and bottom lines. The transition was brutal. I saw inefficiencies everywhere. I saw loyal, long-term employees as liabilities on a balance sheet. My father's work family became my corporate restructuring project. My best friend, Jessica, who is also 32, tried to warn me. We met for coffee a few months after I took over. She looked at me over her latte, her expression worried. "Clara, firing Mr. Henderson? He was with your dad from the very beginning." "He was slow, Jess. We're in a competitive market. We can't afford sentimentality," I replied, my tone clipped. I didn't want to hear it. I was proving myself, showing everyone I was more than just the founder's daughter. But in reality, I was just running from his shadow. Everything in the office reminded me of him. His old leather chair I couldn't bring myself to replace, the photos on the wall of company picnics I'd long since canceled. It was easier to erase him than to live up to him. And then there was Arthur. Arthur, a man of 75 years, was the company janitor. He was like a piece of the old furniture, always there, quiet, moving through the halls after everyone had gone home. I barely noticed him. He was just part of the background noise of my busy life. He had been with the company for decades. I knew this from his employee file, which I'd reviewed when considering outsourcing the cleaning services. I decided against it for now, a rare moment of sentimentality I couldn't explain. The night I spoke those awful words, I was on edge. A multi-million-dollar merger was on the line, and I'd been at the office for 14 hours straight. My head was pounding. The whole building was empty and silent, except for the faint squeak of Arthur's cart down the hall. I walked out of my office to get some water and saw him. He was trying to lift a ridiculously heavy bag out of a large bin. He grunted, his back straining. He was frail, the skin on his arms thin like paper. A flash of irritation shot through me. Why was this ancient man still working? It was a liability. It was inefficient. All I could see was a problem that needed solving. I didn't see a person. I saw a line item. That's when I said it. "You're too old for this job." The words echoed in the empty corridor. Arthur stopped struggling with the bag. He slowly straightened up, his breath coming in short, quiet puffs. He didn't look angry. He just looked sad. It was a look of deep disappointment, and for some reason it felt incredibly personal. It felt like my father was looking at me. I opened my mouth to say something, maybe to apologize, maybe to double down. I don't even know. But he held up a hand to stop me. He reached into the inner pocket of his worn work coat. My heart started to beat a little faster. What was he doing? Was he going to complain? Was I about to get into some HR nightmare? He pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. It was yellowed with age, and my father's familiar looping handwriting was on the front. It simply said, "For Clara." I stared at the envelope, confused. "What is that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Arthur's gaze was steady and clear. It held a wisdom I couldn't comprehend. "This isn't the company's will," he said, his voice soft but firm. "This is your father's. He gave it to me the day he hired you, 20 years after he hired me." My mind reeled. 20 years? My father hired me right out of college 10 years ago. That meant Arthur had known him for 30 years. He wasn't just a janitor. He told me to hold on to it. He said there might come a day when you valued the company more than you valued the people in it. Each word was a physical blow. A cold dread crept up my spine, chilling me to the bone. How could he know? How could my father have predicted this? Arthur extended his hand, offering me the envelope. He said I would know the right moment to give it to you. I think that moment is now. I looked from his weathered face to the letter in his hand. My own hands were trembling. This quiet, invisible man held a final message from my father, a message he had been safeguarding for a decade, a message I had just proven I desperately needed to hear. My carefully constructed world of profits and losses was about to be shattered by a piece of paper delivered by the man I had just insulted. I took the envelope. The paper was cool and brittle against my clammy skin. I couldn't form a coherent thought. All the confidence, the sharp-edged authority I'd built around myself like armor crumbled into dust. In its place was the raw, terrifying feeling of being a child again, about to be reprimanded by her father. "Read it in your office," Arthur said gently, as if sensing my paralysis. He would have wanted you to be in his chair. I nodded numbly and turned, walking back to my office on legs that felt like they didn't belong to me. I closed the door behind me, the soft click echoing the sound of a cage being locked. I sank into my father's large leather chair, the one I hadn't had the heart to throw away. The worn leather seemed to sigh under my weight. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. The letter inside was written on my father's personal stationery, the thick cream-colored paper he used for everything important. His handwriting, so familiar it made my chest ache, filled the page. It began, "My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, it means Arthur has decided the time is right. It also means I am gone and that you have likely lost your way. I don't write this to scold you, my girl. I write this because I love you and because I know you. You have a fire in you, a brilliant mind for business that always made me proud. But you also have my stubbornness and a tendency to see people as numbers on a page." Tears pricked my eyes, hot and shameful. He had seen it. All those years ago, he had seen the person I would become. This company, Thompson Innovations, isn't just steel and glass and profit margins. It's a family. It's the people who believed in me when I had nothing but a dream. People like Mr. Henderson, who co-signed my first business loan. People like Arthur. My breath hitched. Arthur wasn't my first employee, Clara. He was my first partner. We started this company together in his garage. He put his life savings into my idea. When the business took off, he didn't want a title or a big office. He said he just wanted to be useful, to watch it grow from the inside. He chose to be the janitor. He said it was the most honest job in the building, and it let him keep an eye on the heart of the place. I dropped the letter onto the desk as if it had burned me. My entire perception of the quiet old man shattered. He wasn't just a janitor. He was the co-founder of my company, the silent, invisible bedrock upon which my entire career, my entire inheritance was built. I picked the letter back up, my hand shaking violently now. There was more. "I have made a provision in my personal will. The official one gave you the company, but this is a codicil, an addendum known only to my lawyer and to Arthur. The majority of your voting shares in Thompson Innovations are held in a trust. Arthur is the sole trustee. They will be released to you fully on one condition, that he believes you are leading this company with compassion and integrity, that you are honoring the family we built." The air left my lungs in a rush. I wasn't the queen of this castle. I was on probation, and the man I had just humiliated, the man I saw as a liability, was my judge. He is a wise and patient man, Clara, wiser than I ever was. He sees the good in people, even when they can't see it in themselves. Learn from him. Listen to him. He loved you like a nephew long before you were even born. Your success is not measured by the stock price, my daughter. It is measured by the loyalty and well-being of the people who walk these halls. Don't ever forget that. With all my love, Dad. I sat there for a long time, the letter clutched in my hand as tears streamed down my face. They weren't tears of anger or frustration. They were tears of profound, soul-crushing shame and a strange, overwhelming sense of relief. The weight of trying to be a ruthless executive wasn't my father's expectation. It was a prison I had built for myself. My father hadn't wanted me to be a shark. He had wanted me to be a shepherd. After composing myself, I walked out of my office. The corridor was empty. I found Arthur in the break room, carefully wiping down the counters. He looked up as I entered, his expression unreadable. I stood before him, stripped of all my titles and authority. I was just Clara, a daughter who had failed her father. "Arthur," I started, my voice cracking, I am so sorry for what I said, for everything. I didn't know." He stopped wiping and turned to face me fully. A small, sad smile touched his lips. "Your father knew you had a good heart, Clara. He just worried you'd forget how to use it." "He told me about the beginning, the garage, your savings," I stammered, feeling foolish and small. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" "It was never about the money or the credit for me," he said simply. "It was about building something that would last, something that took care of people. Your father and I, we shared that dream. I was just worried his dream would die with him." His eyes met mine, and in them I saw not judgment, but hope. That night was the beginning of my real education. The merger I was so obsessed with, I put it on hold. My first call the next morning was to Mr. Henderson. I didn't just offer him his job back. I went to his house and apologized in person, asking him to return as a senior consultant. I spent the next weeks walking the floors of my own company, but this time I wasn't looking at spreadsheets. I was looking at people. I learned their names, their stories. I reinstated the company picnic. I started an employee profit-sharing program, something my father had always wanted to do. Arthur was my silent guide. We never spoke of the trust again. We didn't have to. Instead, we'd have coffee in the break room before anyone else arrived. He'd tell me stories about the early days, about my father's ridiculous optimism, about the sacrifices people made. He taught me that a company's history is its soul. About a year later, another envelope appeared on my desk. This one was from a lawyer's office. Inside was a single document legally transferring the full voting shares from the trust into my name. Tucked inside was a handwritten note from Arthur. It said, "He would be so proud of you. I know I am." I learned the most valuable lesson of my life that year. Wisdom isn't found in youth or ambition. It's found in the quiet corners of life, in the people we overlook. It's in the hands that have worked hard, the eyes that have seen more than we can imagine, and the hearts that remember what truly matters. What is the wisest piece of advice an older person has ever given you? Until the next story.